This is Temple of Void, and we're going to take you behind the riff.
Welcome back to Behind the Riff. Today we're going to talk about Transcending Horror.
This one I was inspired by 40 Watt Sun, and the vibe and the chords and how much power he gets from playing so slow but playing so emotively, you know, and his chord choices, and I think 40 Watt Sun are just incredible.
Yeah.
And that was the influence, and it's like, okay, how could we take the vibe and then, you know, put it into what TOV does? It was a tricky one to write overall.
Yeah.
Like, as a
But
team.
this is one we had to work. We worked on this one for a while too.
Yeah, and it was tricky, but once we got into the studio and we finished it, it was one of those ones where like it was worth all the effort that we put into it, because it became some of our favorite. You know, some of us think it's the best song on the record. Not the best to play. I think going back to like Engulfed, or, you know, some of those are more fun for us to play. But from like a listening perspective, this is one of our strongest songs. You know? And when we got into the studio, I remember I played, as we started to layer, like we're like, let's just see what happens. So we've got like the bass line and the drums, and then we're in the studio experimenting. I remember hitting some chord using like, you know, like the reverb and delay on my Keeley Caverns, and getting this shimmer chord that was totally like slow dive influence. And I don't even know what the hell chord it was, you know, because we made it up on the spot. But, you know, I strummed this, you know, kind of slow dive thing. And I had so much fun just strumming that chord and just listening to like the tails kind of reverberate out. It sounded so beautiful, the shimmer on the end of it. And I was like, man, I'm having so much fun just like gently strumming a chord. But it was the emotion in that chord, you know, that really worked for that part. And then you made some awesome stuff up on this. Like, will you tell them about how you made your stuff up?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the parts in the song that like took some work, because that there needed to be something else there in that section. And I struggled for a while trying to, you know, I tried something and played it for a while, and just was never really totally feeling what I was coming up with. So I remember that morning before going to the studio, you know, sitting in the living room and listening to Night is a New Day, Catatonia, because I was looking for, that's a time where I was looking for something from one of my favorite bands. You know, like a lot of times, like when I'm writing riffs, like when they come out, I don't always have like, it's not like I'm listening to someone specific where I'm like, you know, yeah, I want to kind of do something like that. You know, it's always kind of there, you know, reflected in bands that I listen to frequently. You know, but this is some
of your parts and like where, your history.
And this is one of those times where, you know, I was really making a call to, you know, to one of the Catatonia. I was really making a call to one of the big inspirations. You know, you know, because I like how when they shift moods and they go to these kind of clean atmospheric parts, you know, for verses and stuff, you know, there's a clean guitar going on, there's some soundscapes going on, you know, I was looking for something like that, you know, to catch that kind of a mood and to have it translate into a
I use the looper pedal too when you talk about soundscapes. I remember using the looper pedal, and taking one of the chords from the verse, and it was like just hanging out, and then it started to loop, and that's one of those kind of textures underneath there in the verse. And then I vividly remember you writing that Catatonia part, and then it took 3 of us monkeys in there, like moving your finger around, like trying to find like the right note.
Yeah, because there was a note that was
and you're almost there, and I'm like, no, ooh, move it over this way. And then Mike comes in and he's like, I know how to play guitar better than all you schmoes, you know. And then he's helping, and between the 3 of us, like you had this thing like 99%, and then it took all of us to just, you know, and then it's like, it's so beautiful when it all came together, and it was like total teamwork. But it was one of those things that was just kind of layered and layered, you know, like I started with the simple bass riff, layering the chords, you're layering your thing, and then it's just become super textural, and then it explodes back up into the chorus, into those big chords. And it's got this laid back, you know. Yeah. It's laid back, but it's, you know, it's still, of course, with Mike, still crushing, you know. Right. So we've kind of got that. We kind of go back and forth, and then it goes into the next time we do the verse, we join in on guitar, so it's not just bass and drums holding down the verse. So then we start kind of, so we could play that. Do that a couple times, and then it moves up to the 11th fret, and we hang on that for like 32 hits or something like that. And then we pause. So that was kind of this, taking the verse, then the last time we play it, getting more heavy with, you know, adding all the distorted guitars on top of it, and then leading us all the way up to this sort of like crescendo where Jason's rocking out on the drums, you know, building. Break, and then a dawn riff. Yeah. I know that we wanted something heavy to really contrast. I'm talking slow dive and all this melodic stuff. It was like, you know, we need something. Yeah, we need something gross. And that's pretty gross. Yeah, it's you know, with one of the things about that part is it like rhythmically it follows the intro riff, you know, in the same like somewhat like. And I didn't even really notice that, to be honest. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I definitely like kind of flubbed the. Yeah, I feel like that's a part though that can also. Because I've got this trailing pinky. it's a little slower on the. You know, but. Yeah. And it's one of those parts that can kind of get away from you a little bit. But again, I think kind of a
kind of a Florida death metal kind of sort of
Definitely swampy.
sound and riff, you know, like again, like it's kind of that malevolent creation, you know, and it's cool because since we play in like drop tuning, you know, playing like the standard power chord position that you would if it was in like a standard tuning, like they sound all like those don't sound right, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
And I like the bend. That's just a fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a good sort of like tension, and then release on those chords. Yeah, it's a fun riff to play. It's nasty.
And I think it's cool too the way, like the way you and I, like the way our styles are different in the sense, like in how we play those parts, where I accent the open more on that part, you know, so that I can catch like the, you know, using like the bridge, like the strings in the bridge to like bend by using the strings up here, and you know, where when you're playing, you're accenting that more, you know. So it's cool that there's like that contrast.
And they come together. Yeah. So that's like the main kind of that's the outro.
Yeah.
And then you've got your lead on top of it.
Yeah.
Do you remember your lead?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a different kind of lead for me to write.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something, you know, I wanted to concentrate on like the higher strings of the guitar for once. And you know, and really write, you know, something, you know, in contrast to
Sin.
The rhythm riff. Yeah. You know, like when I try to do, you know, like leads that, you know, give you an evil,
like
scary
atonal,
kind of vibe.
creepy, like that's definitely like your vibe, and that's simplistic, you know, creepy factor. I feel like you did a real good job on the simplicity, but making everything count, you know, so it sounds sinister and creepy, and it doesn't need to be overplayed. You know,
you know, and I like to, you know, doing like the, you know, kind of doing these like mini dives, you know, with the notes and stuff. You know, again, one of those like disintegrating, melting kind of moods, I think, there with that part.
Yeah. And maybe the only other thing to add on that is we haven't really talked about your odd time signatures / riff writing sometimes. Like sometimes there's a guy in the band.
Oh no, we've talked about it. Not
on camera.
You're right.
We've talked about it many a time. I feel like this may have been one of those riffs where I'm just like, Don, but like what tempo is it in?
Right.
You know, like speak English, you know? And you're like, I don't know, it's just the feel. And sometimes it takes that, like you can't articulate it, and I'm like, why can't you articulate it? And then somehow we get on the same page and we butt heads, and then it works eventually. I feel like that might have been one of those ones, because it'd be weird if we went through all these songs and we didn't talk about how weird some of your riffs are sometimes. But it's great that we've yet to get to one that like hasn't, like we haven't been able to figure out as a band.
Yeah.
You haven't brought one so bizarre that we're like, what are you talking about?
I feel like there was one in
some of your counting things where you're like, what? Like you're counting to 9, Don, and you're like, no. Yeah, but that was probably one of the weird ones.
Anything can be in 4, man.
Yeah, but I mean that's one thing.
Yeah, I think that was one of the parts. I think that was one of them.
Yeah, because there's different ways where you can kind of swing that accent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you could kind of do it on the 1, but you could. There's other ways you could definitely do that, and I don't know what we do other than we get it to work.
Yeah.
You know, and it's cool, and I really like that riff, and yeah, it's a good nasty way to sort of end the heavy part of the album before we go into Mike's Dissolution acoustic track.
Yeah.
So that's it. Thanks for watching Behind the Riff. We've just taken you through pretty much every riff on the whole album.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you stuck with us this far, then, you know, hats off to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.